Welcome back. There we go. Hello. I hope everyone enjoyed the refreshment break. Compliments of LMI. Before we begin our Ignite Round speakers, I would just like to take a moment to reflect on the significance of this morning's conversations. Programs like this truly do highlight the value INSA brings to the intelligence and national security mission. By coming together as a community to address issues like workforce equality and well-being, and by sharing our successes and lessons learned, we are collectively building a stronger and resilient intelligence community. I'd also like to extend my heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you all for being present today and contributing to this important dialogue. Now, let's get back to our sessions. Here to introduce the Ignite Round moderator is Penny Compton, Vice President, Space Software, Cyber, and Operations with Lockheed Martin Space. Penny, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's a pleasure being here today representing one of INSA's founding member companies and longstanding advocates of this critical forum that fuels collaboration across all sectors of the intelligence and national security communities. And even more so, I have the honor and privilege of introducing our Ignite Round moderator, John Doyen. John is an Executive Vice President of the Intelligence and National Security Alliance. In this capacity, he leads INSA strategy, operations, thought leadership, programs, and partnerships. Previously, he served for 35 years at the NSA, where he held numerous senior leadership positions focused on NSA's signals intelligence mission, including serving as the chief strategist for the Signals Intelligence Directorate and Global Capabilities Manager for Russia. Please join me in welcoming John Doyen.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you again, Penny. I'm really excited to get to MC the Ignite Rounds. These are some of my favorite sessions that are part of this program. While the panels and keynotes offer insightful and thought-provoking discussions on important policy and structural issues, the Ignite Rounds give you a chance to bring out sort of the human side of our community. We get to learn more about our speakers and the incredible depth and quality of the people that make up our workforce. So today we're going to hear from 5 leaders with diverse backgrounds and experiences. Each is going to have about 6 to 8 minutes to share their perspective on mid-career reintegration, reinvention, and resiliency. So that's our topic, our theme for the Ignite Rounds this year. First up, we have America Cammarota, Assessments Strategist for the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security. Her talk is titled, Limiting Beliefs, Why Imposter Syndrome Isn't Real. Over to you, America.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is America Cammarota, and today I would like to talk to you about limiting beliefs and how they hold us back from our true potential. Limiting beliefs are thoughts and opinions that we hold for ourselves that restricts your ability to achieve something. It puts boundaries and limitations on what we perceive to be reasonable and holds us back from who we want to become. Limiting beliefs can be incredibly harmful to women's life and success, limiting her achievements, opportunities, and happiness. Some common limiting beliefs are things such as, I'm not strong enough, smart enough, experienced enough, I don't have enough time, I'm too young or too old, it's too late for me. The beliefs that we hold for ourselves are very powerful. They can either create opportunities or they can prevent us from pursuing our goals. All expectations are a story of the possible. Every person lives inside a story of who they are, what they are worth, and what is possible for their life. The problem with limiting beliefs is that they're not very accurate. They're mostly pessimistic ideas that prevent you from achieving your fullest potential. Through my career, I've had many limiting beliefs, and even when I got an invitation to speak at this event today, I thought, who wants to hear from me? But I am honored to be standing here today and thought that I should talk about this exact topic, as I am sure many of you might also struggle with this. I want to tell you my story and some of the lessons I've learned along the way. I'm a first-generation Hispanic woman that grew up in New York in a large family, and when I graduated high school, I decided to enlist in the Marine Corps. I started to have limiting beliefs right away, and I thought, I may not be strong enough for the physical aspects of being a Marine or smart enough for the job that I was pursuing, which was an O231 all-source intelligence analyst. But as it turns out, I had a successful 5-year career in the Marine Corps. It exceeded all my expectations. I had high fitness scores, I achieved the rank of sergeant in 4 years, I briefed 3-star generals like General Berger, I was selected to work at the Pentagon for the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Neller at the time, and providing him and his general staff with intelligence every day. It paved the way for me to do so much more in life, and being at the Pentagon, I realized that I could do a job that I loved out of uniform. During my time in the Marine Corps, I also had a limiting belief that I wasn't smart enough for college or had enough time, but I would go to night school and online school. I was able to graduate with my associate's degree when I left service. For the longest time, I wanted to see the world and travel, but I had the limiting belief that it might be too dangerous. But when I left service, I decided to take 3 months off and go to 22 countries in Europe. I even skydived out of a helicopter in Switzerland. The next limiting belief was when the opportunity came to work at a startup, and I thought I might not be experienced enough for this. One of my former bosses asked me to join the team, and we would go to startup conferences in Silicon Valley and Toronto. Our company was selected to join a competitive cyber accelerator program where I pitched to investors at Amazon Web Services, and we were able to secure funding. Next was my first civilian job back into the intelligence world. I remember thinking, this will be hard. Can I do this job as a civilian? My first contracting job was at FBI headquarters, where I worked at the Violent Crimes Unit. I was passionate about pursuing a role that concerned emerging technologies and wanted to get back into DoD. I remember the exact moment when I applied for my next civilian role, and I took a leap of faith. I became a contractor for OUSD INS in the Technical Collections Office, and I worked there for 2 years, where I was able to help shape emerging and disruptive technologies, topic priorities, and help lead numerous Tiger teams. I had this limiting belief that I would have to work as a contractor for many years before I applied for a government role, that I was too young. The opportunity presented itself, and I remember thinking I would be happy just to get an interview. But 2 years ago, at this exact event, I found out I got the job. I should have felt happy, but I was actually overwhelmed and had this limiting belief that I had to prove that I belonged in that job. I'm happy to report back that I'm doing great, exceeding expectations, and I'm soon to finish a large report that will be seen by the President and the National Security Council. You would think that after all that I've been able to accomplish, I'd be done with limiting beliefs. Recently, it's taking a new form in helping others. I had this initial limiting belief that people wouldn't want my help. But then I found amazing organizations like Amazing Women of the IC, AWIC, and Command Purpose that changed that for me. I currently am on the social planning committee for AWIC and have been successful in doing numerous events with authors and question and answer sessions with the most inspiring women. I was able to facilitate for a Command Purpose workshop just a couple of months ago that helped veteran women going through transition. It has been the most rewarding experience. Limiting beliefs are not just in the workplace. They can be in your personal life too. 5 years ago, I recognized that I wasn't reading as much as I used to when I was younger, and I had told myself that I didn't have enough time, that I thought, what if I made time? I started reading 20 books a year, then 30, all the way to 75. And from 5 years ago today, I have read 265 books, and I've also made so many connections with local authors, bookstores, friends, and expanded my worldview. I would be remiss not to mention the limiting beliefs that people hold for women, and the long line of history of women that challenge those beliefs. Beliefs such as women can't join the Marine Corps. Well, Opha May Johnson changed that. Women can't work in the CIA as an officer. Well, Eloise Page changed that. Women can't be spies. Virginia Hall changed that. And women can't be vice president. Well, Kamala Harris changed that. And I hope to see the first female president in my lifetime. If you don't see it. Be the first. So what lessons did I learn? 1, it's important to have good mentors that can see potential in you that you aren't seeing in yourself yet. I've had some incredible mentors that have helped me navigate my career and strive for more. 2, you can't do it alone. Have a good network, surround yourself with people who will say your name in a room full of opportunities. 3, have the audacity. Pursue what you want to pursue. You have the power of being underestimated. It is a catalyst for growth, resilience, and self-discovery. 4, it's not about the destination. It's about the journey. And 5, the last one, and I think may be the most important one, be intellectually curious. Cultivate a learning mindset. From this perspective, your limitations are experienced quite differently. Your mistakes are seen as an inevitable part of the learning process rather than your failings. I subscribe to the anti-library theory and the power of unread books, not to collect books you have read so you can proudly display them on your shelf. Instead, it is to curate a highly personal collection of resources around themes that you are curious about. So, I want to leave you with this today, that if you can only be one of yourselves, then be your best self. The IC needs you, we have so much to give, and I encourage the next generation of minds to put their talents to use in the IC. Play big, take risks, and do not allow limiting beliefs to stop you from achieving what you want to achieve. Playing big doesn't come from working more, pushing harder, or finding confidence. It comes from listening to the most powerful and secure part of you, not the voice of self-doubt.
Thank you, America, for talking about overcoming limiting beliefs. We are very fortunate to have had you speak to us today. And for people keeping track, that's the second year in a row that the kickoff Ignite Round speaker has mentioned skydiving. Strange fact. Okay, on to the next speaker. We have Dominique Cooper. Dominique is Director of Business Development at LeoLabs, whose talk is titled The Art of Pivoting. Dominique.
Good morning, everyone. Wait, is it still morning? It's morning. Yes, all right. Good morning, everyone. So before I get into the deep stuff, I like to start off with a joke. I'm from Alabama, so I like the audience to talk to me. All right? All right, so you guys ready for this joke? Yes. Why don't scientists trust atoms? Oh my gosh, yay! Yes. All right, now that we've shared a laugh together, I want to get down to business. I'm Dominique Cooper, and many would consider me a master pivoter. Now, I don't know if that's true. I just prefer to say yes to adventures and ventures that challenge me and open up new doors of opportunity. There's a saying that goes, I don't know what I don't know. And while I love that expression because it demands grace during the knowledge transfer from new teammates, it also brings me discomfort, the kind of discomfort that keeps me up at night. Why? Because I hate not knowing what I probably should know. Simply put, or for all of the government people in the room, bottom line up front, I love to learn. With every opportunity to pivot comes another interesting challenge. I want to note, there will come many opportunities to pivot in life. So let's talk about the art of pivoting. To paint the picture as an artist of pivots, I want to share the many opportunities to pivot I've had the honor of experiencing. Now, to be honest, I always feel highly uncomfortable talking about myself, and I was expressing this to my husband last night, and he was like, Dominique, remember, we have to keep purpose at the forefront. So my hope is that everything that I share this morning is helpful and it adds some value to your life. So I studied nuclear engineering, in college, and I immediately went into the power industry. I continued my career working for Dominion Power, starting as a co-op student at Southern Power Company in my home state, Alabama. Then a life-be-lifing moment happened. I discovered I had a brain tumor and underwent surgery within the first 6 months of me starting my new gig as a recent college graduate from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Go Vols! I questioned my journey at this point of my life because I wondered if I needed to pivot from exploring the world, being a small country town girl from Alabama, first-generation student, exploring places I'd never been, or should I pivot to be closer to home for health reasons? Purpose would not allow it. So I pivoted towards a new opportunity to be a part of the Navy's Master's in Systems Engineering program. That was the beginning of more than a decade of government experience, from outfitting Coast Guard ships with self-contained breathing apparatuses to equipping warfighters at the tactical edge with new technology solutions at the National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency. If that wasn't enough, a random guy reached out to me on Facebook, a random guy, to pitch an opportunity to be on the #1 reality TV show in the world. That had to be one of the scariest pivots I've done because I knew I wouldn't be able to control how I would be portrayed on national television. Neither did I have the time to watch 100 episodes to feel prepared to go on a show I knew nothing about. And did I mention I was the program manager on a multi-million-dollar program at the Navy Yard? I didn't have time to really invest the energy to be prepared. But the opportunity to pivot didn't stop there. I was interested in the philosophies of tech startup founders and how business is done in Silicon Valley, so I said yes to another opportunity to pivot. I sold most of my things and I moved to Silicon Valley to join a company of 25 people operating in stealth mode. Isn't that cool? Stealth mode. Who knew just after 3 weeks of living at my new California address, I was so excited about that, that I'd meet a guy who I would marry a year later. Now, that was interesting because a week before I was scheduled to report to California, I had made a vow to myself that I would not date. DC dating is interesting. And then I also made a vow that I would just focus 100% on my career. So to go to California and 3 weeks later meet a guy that I would marry a year later, that was a master pivot. You must have the eyes to see the pivot, to make the pivot. Now, nearly a year later, ping, Purpose sent a text message to alert me that, hey, Dominique, you're probably going to be presented with another opportunity to pivot. At this point in my life, I was exhausted from the change, but I was equally excited to learn more. This was about the time I considered the word focus, as a few mentors had expressed the need to focus. Now, early on in my career, focusing for some odd reason was extremely unattractive to me because I was a type of person who would learn something complex really quickly and then looked for the next challenge. But I was newly married. I was redefining life, and for the first time in my life, I wanted to prioritize what was important to me. I knew I loved mission. I had a strong passion for the development of people and self, and I could never betray my vow to always be learning something new. So, as you probably guessed, I was presented with another opportunity to pivot. I went from a small company to a bigger company, making my way into the space industry. That was another yes to learning something new, and it was a thrilling ride, fast-paced, great impact, mission-driven. But then another life-be-lifing moment happened. Shortly after relocating my entire family to Virginia, the company I worked for was acquired. I felt deep inside that purpose would again be reaching out to me very soon. Ping! Surely and behold, I was right. Purpose sent me a text message, and she was like, hey, what you doing? This was one of the times I did not want to be right. I was actually ready to focus. But my role was impacted, and I had to learn to accept a new, very uncomfortable text from Purpose. It was now time for me to pivot towards me. Now, this was one of the hardest pivots. It took me more than a month to become comfortable with resting. My nervous system was like, wait, we're not doing something right now? What's going on? And although I knew this stop was purposeful, I couldn't betray my vow to always be learning something new. So I doubled down on sharpening my photography and videography skills. I taught myself how to become a drone pilot, and I took on more consulting clients. It was lovely. It was stitched in awesome sauce. I still say that, yeah. It was stitched in awesome sauce. And then I heard, ping, a new text message from Purpose. She doesn't give up, but honestly, I really wouldn't want her to. A few weeks after embracing the soft life, I accepted an opportunity to pivot towards joining LeoLabs. LeoLabs is one of the world's leading provider of space domain awareness, information in low Earth orbit. Shameless plug. Okay, I got past that. Although I admitted a ton of other experiences touched by the hands of purpose and the power of pivots, that was a long outline of my career. Hopefully, you guys are still with me. I didn't set out to master the art of pivoting. I embrace the journey of purpose. I see purpose as a living entity, fully aware of opportunities that will direct you or provoke a pivot that leads further along the journey of success. Nelson Mandela said it best. Maybe I can say it better. I never lose. I either win or I learn. This perspective for me has been extremely critical when facing the unknown. Now, the key tenets of pivoting towards what's right for you require faith, the kind of faith that stands taller than fear. Pivoting with purpose in mind requires open hands so that when it's time to grasp the next opportunity, you don't drop a thing. Pivoting with purpose first requires bravery, the kind of bravery that will inspire you to go at it wholeheartedly, even when it makes you uncomfortable. Martin Luther King said, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. The art of pivoting is rarely about the pivot itself, but about the journey and the growth that comes with it. So look, I have one piece of advice about pivots. See it and do it. What that translates to is no fear and pivot, or no life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dominique. I loved it. Pivoting, and especially the part about that gives you the opportunity to always learn something new. And oh, by the way, all those text messages you got from Purpose, I think some people here might enjoy if you could share the contact information with us. That'd be great. Next up, we have Jennifer Ewbank, who's the former Deputy Director for Digital Innovation at the CIA, and she's founder of Andaman Strategic Advisors. She will discuss a journey of reinvention and renewed purpose. Jennifer, over to you.
So imagine standing on the precipice of a dramatic new chapter in your life, when seemingly everything will change, feeling a mix of excitement, uncertainty, maybe a little trepidation. Now imagine embarking on an epic journey, one that transforms not just your external surroundings, but your inner landscape as well. This is the essence of my recent pilgrimage from southern France up over the Pyrenees and across northern Spain on the Camino de Santiago. So good morning, everyone. And today I want to share with you a few of the lessons I learned during my recent transition away from a decades-long career in the high-stakes world of intelligence operations, where I culminated in the position as was described as Deputy Director of the CIA for Digital Innovation. So this journey, both literal and metaphorical, is about gratitude, embracing change, finding renewed purpose, and redefining one's identity. So reinvention, if you will. Now, leaving a career that has been your mission, your calling, your identity for so long is no small feat. For many of us, our work is not just a job, it becomes who we are. And this is especially true for all of us in extreme careers like intelligence operations. The shift from such a life can be disorienting and extremely challenging, surprisingly so, forcing a profound shift in perspective, purpose, and identity. And for years, I had seen former colleagues who really struggled upon their departure from the service, feeling something very much like grief at the loss of the life they once had. And so I knew as I approached my own retirement, I needed to do something different, something special to prepare for this life change. And that's when I remembered the ancient pilgrimage route, the Camino de Santiago, the Way of St. James, which I had learned of and seen when I was a student in southern France decades ago. Walking the 800 kilometers of the Camino alone became my way of transitioning from one life to the next. As I slowly made my way along the path that millions of pilgrims have walked since the 9th century, and with the luxury of time and, frankly, mental space that I had not enjoyed for decades, I pondered themes of resilience, purpose, wellness, self-discovery, and a whole lot more. Friends and family asked me repeatedly, what was I striving to discover on this pilgrimage? And even before departing, I sensed a potential trap in that way of thinking. I remembered Viktor Frankl's groundbreaking work on finding purpose in life, and the risk that counterintuitively, hyper-intention, that intense focus, can actually drive you further away from the thing that you seek. And I thought of Lao Tzu, who encouraged us to embrace life's inevitable transitions with a flexible attitude, adapting to rather than resisting change. So I knew, at least for me, the right approach was to embark on this long journey with an open heart, a receptive mind, but absolutely no expectations whatsoever, allowing the Camino to present its wisdom, if there is some, in its own time and in its own way. Now, in very short order, the value of mindfulness was repeatedly brought to my attention. Now, I have never been someone who dwells on the past, but the future, that's where I could spend hours, days, weeks, you name it, contemplating some event that had yet to transpire. And the dramatic elevation changes, the rocky, unstable paths, the occasionally unclear signage, and, my own chronic knee pain demanded that I pay close attention to the Camino, the actual path, pay attention. And when my mind inevitably wandered, as it has in the past, to future worries, I was quickly reminded to pay attention. So once through, I will admit it, a spectacular and very inelegant fall into a deep rocky ditch, and once by kind of a magical escort by a large group of butterflies through a forest. They immediately disappeared as soon as I slowly tried to capture the moment on my phone. So, message received, I thought, right? Live in the moment. And this mindfulness, really living fully in the present, is a lesson that obviously transcends the Camino. It's about appreciating the here and now, rather than wasting mental energy on the past or fretting over some future events that may never come to pass. Now, I have a secret. I am a lifelong closet introvert, the most introverted of introverts. And the solitude of the Camino was nothing short of a gift for me. So after years of really high-intensity work here in the States and traveling all around the world, silent, solitary steps through forests and fields were actually rejuvenating for me. I realized that while my career had always required me to work against type, in more recent years, I had failed to pay any attention and to find at least some little tiny bit of balance to renew that energy from time to time. And with each step, the Camino almost literally lifted a little weight off my shoulders and little by little renewed my natural kind of vitality and optimism. In fact, I found myself, smiling broadly or laughing randomly as I was walking through the forest alone, and that's not something I had experienced for the past few years. The solitude was not a reason for concern, and trust me, I had friends and family who were very concerned about me doing this alone, but it really became a source of renewed, strength and joy, which was essential for this, lifelong closet introvert. So mindfulness, solitude, and moments of adversity along the Camino naturally enable deeper contemplation of life's purpose as well. Aside from the love of family and friends, which has always been front and center in my mind, I had long found my meaning and my purpose in defending my country. It's been a noble calling and one that has motivated me for decades. It fueled resilience in the face of challenges, gratitude in moments of triumph, and steadfast humility, even as I rose to one of the highest levels in the intelligence community. But this is where so many former intelligence officers falter. Once the adrenaline of high-risk operations and these dopamine hits of victory stop coursing through your system, what then? And when you wake up in the morning and you realize that no one is counting on you personally, to guarantee our security, what is your purpose? And so on the Camino, I had the opportunity to contemplate just that question at length. And eventually I realized that my skills, my background, my experience in national security, in public-private partnerships, global engagements, and more recently digital transformation can be of real value to the private sector and our economic security, which I've long understood and argued at countless speeches are a key pillar of our national security. And so this new mission, and I still think that way, though obviously different, is equally compelling and profound for me. It's purposeful in a way, and it will carry me forward for many years to come. But finding a new purpose is not so easy, right? It really requires separation, the ability to change, to let go of the past without regret. As Rumi's work reflected, right, we must embrace the impermanence of all things, finding beauty, and I would add gratitude, in the present moment. And this is especially true for those of you who are in extreme careers where your identity is so closely tied to the work you do, and in that moment when you're seeking to transition to something else. We must remember and keep reminding ourselves that we have always been more than our job titles. Now, retiring intelligence officers would do very well to think about the work of philosophers like Spinoza, who suggest that identity is not fixed, it's never fixed, it's constantly in a state of transformation. And we must find our own path to a new identity. One, obviously, that honors prior service as formative experience. I mean, these are deep and profound experiences that we have in the intelligence community. But you need to open a new path to a new life, a new identity for the future. Now, walking the Camino also rekindled my enjoyment of connection. And for a career that is all about making connections, this is going to seem counterintuitive, operations officers' personal connections often, I would say usually, suffer over the course of a long career. Living one's cover can become just an exhausting burden at times. And frankly, the frenetic pace, the unpredictable schedules can fray relationships even with your closest family members. So meeting fellow pilgrims on the Camino, each on their own inner journey, was a reminder of the importance of human connection. And obviously, it was a fantastic opportunity to meet amazing people from all over the world, but it was also a really important reminder to go back and nourish and renew and refresh those old friendships as well. So over the course of 800 kilometers, the physical pilgrimage became, I would say, an outward manifestation of an inner journey for me. The Camino was a transformative experience for me, as it is, frankly, for so many people, reminding me of the importance of mindfulness, resilience, solitude, separation, gratitude, and connection. Each lesson was a step towards a new purpose, a new mission, and a new identity, reinvention, right, if you will, for this next stage of my professional life. So in closing, I have no profound words of wisdom. All I can say is that I urge all of you to embrace life's inevitable transitions. Whether you're facing the end of a much-loved career, as I was, or you're in the middle of a significant life change, or you're just seeking a new direction in your career, remember these few lessons from the Camino de Santiago. Live in and appreciate the moment. Let go of the past with gratitude and without regret. Nurture your connections, both new and old. Define your new purpose, your new mission, and accept that your identity will change over time. Indeed, it must change over time to live a rich and full life. They say that life is a journey, and I agree. It is an epic journey, and each step can bring new insights if you walk it with an open heart and a receptive mind. Trust that all you need to learn will be revealed along the way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for sharing your experiences with Reinvention and reminding us of the importance of taking time for balance and self-care and reflection. So thank you again. Next up is Nateé Johnson. She is the Managing Consultant for Defense and Security Segment at Guidehouse, and she will discuss There and Back Again, a journey of self-definition and discovery. Nateé.
The title is a play on one of my favorite movies, The Hobbit, There and Back Again, for those who aren't familiar. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nateé Johnson, and I am one of the ways that I serve our community as the managing consultant at Guidehouse. And I work with agencies to help them improve the quality of their data and the efficiency with which they use it to serve their missions. Now, given that, I know many of us in here have been vetted in some fashion, so brace yourself for a personal question. Are you ready? Show of hands if you have ever done anything that you didn't want your parents to know all the details of. Oh, thank you. I appreciate your honesty. It's going to make this confession a lot more comfortable, so safe space. I'm invoking that right now. So you see, there was a summer in college where I headed about 5,000 miles due south to study abroad in Valparaiso, Chile for 6 months. While I was there, I decided to go an additional 2,000 miles south to traverse Patagonia National Park for about 5 days with a friend of the program who we'll call Jill. Now, my mom knew and approved of the study abroad, and she knew about the trip to Patagonia. But what she didn't know were many of the details that had been redacted for fear that she would chain me in her basement, citing insufficient sense of self-preservation. So today I'm going to unburden my soul and share some of those details, but then also some of the life lessons that I drew from them that justify the insanity of it all. So for context, it was spring break, which is November down there, and Jill's idea of a good time was solo backpacking through the wilderness. So with zero experience and even less gear, I naturally volunteered to go as security. If you saw the gear that we were traveling with, you'd understand how one could have negative gear. Now, that was in part due to us scavenging a lot and borrowing what we needed, like sleeping bags, tents, hiking, backpacks, even the boots. So we get down there, and it's roughly 36 hours after leaving the city, and we're met with this unrelenting terrain, having to ascend 2,500 feet, scale the side of mountains with this piercing wind that fought us at every step. Then there was a soggy marshland through this forest, and after all that, we had to scramble this boulder mountainside to get to some snowy trail to finally see Torres del Paine. And then we Uno reversed, did all that again to go back to camp and called it day one. That's when we learned that the sleeping bags, mentioned borrowed, from our host families were for 10-year-old girls. So it did not come above my waist, and that meant having to sleep in all the clothes I had packed to stave off the wild temperature swings from day to night. After that, I realized I had a broken waist strap on the backpack I was borrowing. For anyone who doesn't hike, that means you're carrying all the weight in your shoulders, not in your hips where it's meant to be. So by the end of day 2, I couldn't even use my arms anymore. Jill had to help me get my clothes off. It was terrible. And not only that, I also had oversized work boots. And that meant losing all sensation in my big toe. After miles and miles of uneven terrain and all this elevation change. So with all of that, the temptation to turn back was real. The temptation to casually careen off of the mountainside with the hope of helicopter rescue was also real. As it turned out, the only way out was through, and that's just what we did. By some miracle, we made it through. I emerged from that wilderness with a deep understanding of who I was and that I was capable of absolutely anything that I put my mind to. I just have to decide on how much pain I'd be willing to shoulder to make it through. And I'm sharing this part of the story because I learned some invaluable lessons that continue to shape my life and how I embrace it. I learned that the cure for self-limiting beliefs, which we heard about earlier, is to do hard things. Suck at them for a while, and then eventually observe 1% progress. Rinse, repeat. After 100 tries, you will be 100% better than when you started. So fail often, and then grow some more. So after all the pain and success of part 1, that was the there, why would I go back again? Well, 10 years later, I opted to do a part 2, and had the expectation that I would go out there armed with all of this wisdom and from my previous experience, and I could confidently tour the park and even bring my 14-year-old sister with me, thinking that it'd just be a casual, very zen experience. She'd get to see the majesty of the mountains, the shimmering lakes, the stars that looked like pixie dust. There was a profound quiet. My memory was very beautiful. You know how bad relationships, we forget the bad parts and it's just we romanticize. So I wanted to show her all the romantic parts. So things started off mild, but those intense winds from part 1 had not taken a day off. So our attempts to pitch our tent failed spectacularly. We practically suffocated inside when the fabric gave way to the raging winds, and we called it good enough. We went on for a day hike to see some glaciers. And when we returned from that day hike, I noted that the tent that was tragically mounted someone had adjusted the stakes in it and saved us from our ignorance. And I highlight this as a lesson in the value of small acts of kindness. 7 years later, I am still grateful for that unnamed stranger who, without want of recognition or praise, probably saved us from asphyxiation by tent. Details not shared with Mom. So for the sake of time, I'll abbreviate the experience and fast forward to day 4. Instinct had told me to grab a map, even though the ranger told us that we wouldn't need one because the trailblazers would be sufficient to guide us. Up until that point, we had been doing about 4 to 6 miles a day and just moving between campsites. So there had been plenty of people on the trail, and we really didn't need the map. Day 4, this morning, we casually set out. We stopped for a photo shoot by the lake. We stopped for lunch at this intermediate campsite, and eventually, we set out for our final destination. And in my mind, from my experience, it was only gonna be another 2 miles. So as we're setting out, at some point we stopped seeing people come from the opposite direction. And about another hour goes by, and we're tired, we're ready to be done for the day. And then I see this couple, and they didn't really have any gear, so I flag them down, and I'm asking, how long, this is all in Spanish, so my sister doesn't understand what they're saying, but I'm how long since you guys have left the last campsite? And I'm hoping they'll say something like 20 minutes. They said it had been about 2 hours. And that's them going at the pace of some very lean, backpackless gazelles. And I knew for sure that meant it'd be twice as long for us. So I look back at my sister, and we're already hours into this day, and I didn't have the heart to translate to her what they had just said. So I was listen, I know you're tired, but I need everything you've got to pick up this pace, because now we're racing daylight. And in this park, you're not allowed to camp outside the sites. You're not allowed to use fire. So there was a true motivation to get to this campsite. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, we get to a point in the trail where it forks, and there are no blazes in sight to indicate which way is the appropriate way to go. So I have this map, but it's practically useless because I can't figure out where we are on it. There were no landmarks. Like most of the trip, we had a large lake on our right-hand side, and there was one landmark that was like this tiny lagoon, and that was going to be what I used to kind of spot us. Well, I hadn't seen this little lagoon, and so I convinced myself that we must have passed it, and we only have like 30 minutes to go. Well, I had been saying that for 2 hours. So at this fork, I decided to head straight down the path because it looked more worn, and about 1 kilometer down, I finally see this lagoon. I was so irritated. To my dismay, the trail looks like it skirts right up alongside the lagoon, so there's an embankment with about a 10-foot drop, and you're scaling the side of this cliff, and there's like a single foothold where you do like a single leg squat up to this clearing. So I look down, and I don't see any claw marks or skeletal remains. Therefore, I decide to curse whoever made this trail and go first. I get across, but now it's my little sister's turn, and I'm nervous. Details Mom did not know. And I couldn't even look at her as she crossed it, but she made it across without incident, and now we're at this clearing, but the trail has disappeared. She wants to turn back. I'm like, we barely survived the first time. We're not going over that embankment again. We're going to forge forward. As a matter of fact, we're going to go with gravity. We're just going to go downhill. But she insisted on going uphill, and I was like, I don't think so. We're going downhill. But she wouldn't stop. She's like, hey, just check the map, check the map. And I'm like, well, fine. I will check this map. But now I finally have this lagoon that I had been looking for to kind of give me a point of reference. So upon reviewing the map, it turns out she was making the right call, that going uphill was a more prudent direction because that was towards civilization. And we get up there, and off in the way far distance, there is some signs of life. So at that point, all life left me, and I'm like, at least she'll make it. She can come back from my body, tell Mom I loved her. Like, I'm done. And so she picked up the pace and carried us through, and we eventually found the trail again. We eventually made it to camp after dark, and we lived to see another day, as evidenced by me standing here. So that park had humbled me yet again, and it proved to me that you're never too old to learn something new. And there are 3 lessons from those collective experiences that I want to leave you with. Lesson 1, check yourself. To know how to get where you're going, you have to know where you are. Self-awareness is critical for any form of success, whether that be as an individual or an organization. I had that map, but it was useless unless I understood where I was. And that's important not only in orienteering, but also in life. Check your heading. It's easy to drift when you are stuck on autopilot, something that I think we fall into with the day in and day out responsibilities that shape our patterns. So as you navigate your life, your career, evaluate that you're still following your true north. Number 3, check your circle. A strong circle of trusted partners is vital to long-term success. It's said to go fast, go alone. To go far, go together. I am so grateful that my little sister had the internal fortitude, she was half my age at the time, to challenge me, and then also to carry the emotional load when I had nothing left to give. So as I zoom out, I realize I wouldn't be where I am or who I am without my trusted friends and family who have helped me carry the load. So I encourage you to do that for yourself. I hope you take these lessons, paid for in my blood, sweat, and tears, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Nateé. And I just really love that. And plus, the thing that resonated for me was when you said so often the only way out is through. And so you made it through, and we're glad we heard all about it. Is this our last speaker now? One more to go? One more to go. And the next person up is no stranger to INSA audiences. To close things out, we have Lindy Kyzer, who's the Director of Content and PR for Clearance Jobs, who will discuss the unexpected career path. Lindy.
Thank you. Want to be successful? Marry the right person, get the right degree. Don't have kids until you're 30, but don't wait too long to have kids. If you don't make $100K by the time you're 25, you'd better change jobs, but don't ever stay in the same job more than 3 years, and never work for XYZ agency, but you absolutely must work for ZYX agency. A lot of the career advice women in particular get seems to be warning us about all of the mistakes that we might make, as if we didn't have enough anxiety already. My entire life has been laced by mistakes, even though my greatest fear has always been that someone would realize I'd made one. Being afraid kept me trapped in an abusive marriage for more than a decade. My pride made it more important for me to act like I couldn't be dumb enough to marry someone who hurt me than to get out and get help. For the record, you're not dumb because someone hurts you. Don't be afraid to get help. For a decade, I bore the brunt of every blow-up inside my house so I could keep up appearances outside of it. I always thought, if I could just be good enough, if I could be better, I could fix it. But you will never be good enough to fix someone who thinks you deserve to be hurt. If I have one takeaway for this room today, it's to not be paralyzed by the mistakes you've made. Remember, regret, lament, but for the love of Pete and me, if you want to be resilient, regardless of the age or stage or where you're at in your career life, you have to keep going with relentless hope in a better future and not your unhappy present. Kool-Aid man your way, straight through that wall of mistakes you've made and into the opportunities ahead. 4 years ago, I found myself abandoned with my joint bank account emptied and 4 kids to raise. Every day I pray for my season of suffering to be over, and so far, it doesn't feel like it will be anytime soon. 4 years ago, I had to figure out who I was and if I was worth fighting for. I had to decide if I was going to lay in bed and cry, or if I was going to get up and show my kids what moms are made of. I had to rebuild myself, and that included my career. It turns out you can make all of the wrong choices. You don't have to do it all, and you can still have everything you need. I have a confession to make. It's one I've made before. I have never once liked my job title. I'm actually super embarrassed about how I acted when I worked for the Department of the Army, and I was trying to get recognized as the deputy director of our new online and social media division. I had spearheaded the creation of this new division as a young GS in the Pentagon. I was working in the S&T division and realized we didn't have any official communications mechanisms into this social media world. So I created a brief. I got it all the way up to the 2-star general. It was approved, and they said, congratulations, you may go work in that new division that you have created, but you may have no authority inside of it because you are simply too young and too low ranking. So that created a long and illustrious career of making up my own job titles. I started referring to myself as the U.S. Army social media maven, and it was fun for a while, but then I didn't last long at the Pentagon. I was soon at home working as a consultant as I awaited the arrival of my first child. I had no intentions to go back to work full-time. I had a lot of intentions to eat Dairy Queen and write the next great American novel. Fortunately for me, Clearance Jobs reached out with a job offer that I could not refuse and another job title that I absolutely hated. Clearance Jobs had seen my prolific tweets, so the hidden job market is always at work, people, and reached out to offer me a job as an editor. It didn't matter that I considered myself more of a media or marketing person. Editor was the job. I could take it or leave it. I took it. I spent 8 years as an editor for Clearance Jobs, far longer than anyone will ever tell you to stay with a single employer, let alone in the same job title. But I never allowed my career to be constrained by my job title. Rather than waiting for a better title, I built a better job. I searched for opportunities to do things that would bring value to the company, and I did it. I rarely, Never, Jill, asked for permission. I loved words, but I also loved people, so I built relationships, and I grew my role far beyond what was expected of me. I believe that women are uniquely suited to doing that. We don't have to work within the confines of the role we've been given. We've had centuries of having to figure out how to work within systems built to constrain and limit our voice. We find a way. We are the creators and nurturers of our own opportunities. Some career advice will tell you it doesn't serve you to go above and beyond your job description. Your work can't keep you warm at night, they say. I say, tell that to my Lenovo and a nice glass of Merlot. They've been keeping me quite warm. But it's not just doing too much that can lead to burnout. Allowing yourself to stagnate in the confines of small tasks won't build your career or your capacity. Don't fall for the temptation to ride it out. Your boss may live longer than you think. Burnout isn't just going too hard, don't kill your boss. Allowing your strengths to atrophy doesn't just deny your own opportunity, but your chance to build a pathway for others. Find work that delivers results, even if it's outside your job description or not on the ladder you think you're supposed to be climbing. Let your dad climb the ladder. Sometimes the best way to grow is to laterally shimmy and shake your way across a few different sectors. Taking the unexpected career path is not easy by any means. It requires leaning into what my personal focus word is, hope. I recently came across a quote a friend shared about hope from Twitter. I don't even use X anymore, so I'm not sure why the Lord is choosing it to do a work in my life, but it's very unexpected and that's totally on brand. Here's the quote. People speak of hope as if it is this delicate, ephemeral thing made of whispers and spiders' webs. It's not. Hope has dirt on her face, blood on her knuckles, the grit of the cobblestones in her hair, and just spat out a tooth as she rises for another go. For years, I had a voice in my ear telling me that I would never be good enough, that I was unlovable, that I was a joke, that if I ever posted a video of myself online, the only reason people would watch it would be to make fun of me. I still hear that voice. It's chasing me through the back of my brain every day, but I'm learning to run faster, and I'm learning to not listen to it. I post YouTube videos every week. I speak at conferences. I have built an amazing community, and that community shows up for me even when I can't. That's another unique advantage women bring to the table. Leverage your village to advocate for you in the rooms where you can't be. You can be more places than you think because you have more friends than you realize. I have to do a shout out here to Peggy O'Connor. Peggy and I had dinner soon after she started at INSA, and soon Peggy and Suzanne were reaching out to give me opportunities to speak and do things like their INSA, the Future of the IC Workforce series, which Clearance Jobs and GDIT are partnering on this year. They had no idea what was going on in my personal life at the time. I was standing in the burning rubble of my best laid plans. Things were a little smoky, and I was struggling to see my way out. But those little asks made me feel so seen and so valued at a time when I so needed it. Ask the crazy lady who takes you to dinner, to do the webinar or work on the project or join the ERG. You never know when that ask is the exact affirmation their soul needs. To be seen, to see each other, and to love each other is such a gift. I love you, Peggy, and I love you, Suzanne. Within you, there are multitudes, a multitude of career paths, a multitude of titles, a multitude of emotions, and a multitude of advantages, even the ones that seem like disadvantages and adversities. I am an abuse survivor, former news editor, media maven, bibliophile, happy mom, feminist, monarch, director of something at Clearance Jobs, depending on the day and the fake title I make up for myself. I am more than every title I've ever had because I don't let a title or a label or my gender to keep me from doing what needs to be done. Make a mistake. Take the wrong job, move to the wrong city, work for the agency you never wanted to, embarrass yourself a few times. Take the unexpected career path. And if you find yourself at a fork in the road and you go in one direction and you later find out it was the wrong one, know it's going to be okay. Just last week, a couple weeks ago, my kids had a rough Saturday. And as I triaged our way through the broken promises life has thrown at us, suddenly one of my kids saw a huge double rainbow out the window. And they begged me to go drive and find the end of the rainbow. And I told them I was really tired and I didn't want to go. And in typical kid fashion, they begged and pleaded. And in typical me fashion, I acquiesced. So I threw my bra back on, got everybody in the car, and we went to go chase the end of the rainbow. And just as we pulled out of the neighborhood, we watched it dissipate before our eyes. That glorious double rainbow just faded away into the sunset sky. Whether it's in life or a career, we have all had experiences of chasing a rainbow only to watch it fade from view. But rather than grumbling about the rainbow that was gone, we took it as an opportunity to celebrate the sky that it had given forth. It was another sweet reminder to me and my kids that the promise is still there. The path is still out there. It may have faded into something different. That glorious rainbow was gone, but we still had a gorgeous sky. We had the 5 of us together and safe, jamming out to music in our pajamas, watching the sunset fade away into those last glimmers of light. That's the unexpected path. If your rainbow has faded away, look for the promise whispered in the sky it leaves behind. It is out there. It may not be easy to see when the smoke and the storm clouds roll in, but you are here for a reason, and there is something for you in the unexpected path it leaves behind. Just take the next step, the next breath, and keep going. It's enough. You're enough, and I hope you can see it. I love you all. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Lindy. Thank you for being so open and vulnerable and sharing your story with us today with grace and humor. And we value your partnership here at INSA, but more so, we value your friendship. And with that, this brings us now to lunchtime. We'll break for lunch. It's outside and time to meet somebody new, perhaps, or say hello to somebody you haven't talked to in a while. And we'll see you back here at 1 o'clock.